Hey, what's up, guys? Early this week, Bitcoin halving happened, and there are lots of different expectations what Bitcoin price should look like for the next few weeks and months. In this video, I will give you my own opinion, what I think will happen to Bitcoin's price at the short term and a long term. Then, Mike Novogratz will give his Bitcoin price prediction by the end of 2020. First and foremost, I want to congratulate cryptocurrency enthusiasts and Bitcoin holders with the execution of Bitcoin halving. This was a historic time when Bitcoin mining reward dropped from 12.5 BTC to 6.25 BTC, decreasing the inflationary supply and defining the real sound money. You may wonder, yeah, Bitcoin halving is done, but now what? How does this going to impact Bitcoin's price? Will it go down? Will it go up? Well, for me to answer that question, we need some historical point of references. Fortunately enough, we have two of those points. I wish it would be more, but we have to work with what we have. This video is brought to you by big1.com. Big1 is a reliable cryptocurrency exchange platform with over 100 digital currencies. This is the only exchange which has never lost any tokens since the initial operation as of 2017. Recently, they launched a star program which allows users to invite friends and receive a percentage of their trading fees as a reward and 10% discount to your own trading. Check the link to the big one in the description box below. The first Bitcoin halving happened in 2012, November 28. This is when Bitcoin mining reward dropped from 50 BTC per block to 25 BTC. The reward dropped in half. The good thing is that Bitcoin price did not drop in half. In fact, few weeks prior to Bitcoin halving, the price increased by 20%. It went from $10 till $12 a coin at the day of the Bitcoin halving, which was executed on November 28th. After Bitcoin halving, it was still increasing. Just 1 month later, it increased from $12 to slightly over $13. Nothing really major happened. However, only 5 months later in April 2013, the price skyrocketed all the way over $235 a coin. You don't need to be a math genius to figure it out that if you would invest at $12 and exited at $235, you would have made lots of money. Actually, it would almost be 20x return on your investment in just 5 months. By the end of the year, Bitcoin reached over $1,000 a coin. So you can only imagine what a huge return would it be. Moving forward till 2016. This is when second Bitcoin halving reward occurred. This time, Bitcoin mining reward dropped from 25 BTC per block to 12.5 BTC. Unlike first Bitcoin halving, when price just continued to grow and grow, second Bitcoin halving was a bit different. Second Bitcoin halving happened on July 9, 2016. There was lots of volatility in both ways, up and down. 1 month prior to Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin price was at $450. In just a matter of few weeks, price almost doubled. It jumped all the way close to $800 a coin. It retraced a bit, and during the Bitcoin halving, the price was around $660 a coin. Just few weeks after Bitcoin halving, the price plummeted and dropped till $470. That's almost 30% drop. Shortly after that, the price recovered and Bitcoin price continued to rally. By the end of the year, it went all the way to $1,100. Since then, everyone thought that Bitcoin was unstoppable. It continued to grow in a very rapid rate. It created that 2017 rally that all of us probably remember very well. It skyrocketed all the way to $20 a coin. For a quick recap, in 2012 Bitcoin halving, with just 1 month, Bitcoin slightly increased. In 2016 Bitcoin halving, with 1 month, Bitcoin dropped by 30%. But what both of those Bitcoin events have in common is that huge price appreciation within number of months or just few years. Right now, if you look at the Bitcoin chart, we had a decent rally since March when Bitcoin dropped under $4,000. Since then, Bitcoin more than doubled in price. It tapped $10,000 few days before Bitcoin halving, and during the day of Bitcoin halving, it was fluctuating around $8,500. As of the time of this recording, it's already at $9,200 a coin. But what will happen with the short period of time? I think we should expect lots of volatility. BTC might fluctuate going up and down viciously. But personally, I believe we will end 2020 with very appealing price appreciation. Now let's take a quick look at this Anthony Pompliano interview, which was conducted a few days prior to Bitcoin halving. He gave his opinion what will happen to Bitcoin after this event.
What would you say to retail investors when it comes to a strategy for the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think, one, it's important just to understand what's going to happen. Obviously, the halving, reducing that daily incoming supply by 50% is a supply shock that historically has led to a pretty significant price increase over the following 18 months, give or take. And so, we generally think that that's going to happen here again. But one, we need to make sure that the halving actually occurs. So the code executes. Two is there's going to be a lot of volatility before and after. That volatility doesn't necessarily mean that value is changing. It's just the price is changing, and people are trying to reprice something or price discovery. And so I don't really care so much about, does the price go up, does it go down, does it go sideways in the short term. I take a pretty long-term view on a lot of this stuff. But obviously, when you do have moments like this that some portion of investors understand, some other portion don't, there's going to be some arbitrage, there's going to be some price volatility there. And so really it's just educate yourself. I think it's the key piece. And then if you're a long-term holder like I am, it doesn't really matter, right? As long as it actually executes and happens, it should be almost a non-event in the sense of it's not like the halving's going to occur and Bitcoin's going to 10x in price or 3x in price. I actually think that it'll be pretty boring for most people if they have that long-term horizon.
And I think you're right in saying that one of the most interesting aspects of the halving is actually the new approach and the new wave of interest that we're going to see as well, because even cryptocurrency exchanges have been speaking out about large volumes of new users that they have onboarding. And we have to touch on the risk here that are for new retail investors. This is a huge time of economic uncertainty anyway. And in your newsletter, you've mentioned that more than 30 million Americans have lost their jobs. So as the average American right now, where would be the best place to put your money?
Yeah, look, obviously I kind of shy away from giving it financial advice, but the way that I think about this is whenever there's a liquidity crisis or liquidity trap, the dollar is king, right? And what I mean by that is you're in a deflationary environment, asset prices will sell off, people want dollars, they want that stability, safety, and so we've seen that happen. On top of that, what you then will get is the government response of tons of quantitative easing, which we now have started to see, over $2 trillion printed. And so what then transpires after that government action is the fear of inflation. Whether it actually happens or not is almost a moot point. It's the fact that people think it could happen, and therefore they run for inflation hedge assets. So they run to things like gold, Bitcoin, real estate, other assets. And so we saw this in 2008, 2009. Gold went down about 30% over the summer of '08 during the liquidity crisis. It then went up 200% over the ensuing kind of 2 years and it hit an all-time high as people look for that inflation hedge asset. I think very similarly, we'll see something like that here. I think Bitcoin will be the outperformer across all asset classes.
I think what's interesting as well is when we look at, in the past 8 weeks alone, performance of stocks and also commodities. Oil was a huge talking point just a few weeks ago. Were you surprised at any of the movements that we saw, particularly Bitcoin's durability and how Bitcoin managed to kind of regain some price momentum, but also the impact on the stock markets and then the bounce back as well? How have you viewed the past 8 weeks?
Yeah, so I mean, look, there was two major things that stick out in my mind. The first is we saw a 50% drop in a matter of hours. On that kind of Black Thursday, and I don't care who you are, I got probably some of the strongest hands out there, and my my gut is just like, what is going on, right? And there's always that fear of this thing's only 11 years old, is it going to zero, right? I'm kind of been pretty public about the idea that like I'm going to ride it to zero if that's where we're going, because I just have this long-term belief. But I don't think that there's very many people who felt good about it. The good news is that we've seen this before. We've actually had big drawdowns before, and so when you look at the data, pretty much none of the strong hands sold. Anyone who's been holding for a long period of time, they're kind of hardened to this, and they're somewhat prepared or desensitized to it. So I think that was one big moment, and it was good to see that pretty much everything that was sold during that 50% drawdown had moved in the last 12 months or so. So it's probably more speculators, traders, Wall Street firms, things like that. The second key piece is after that happened, I think it ended that day down like 35% or so. It has rallied. Bitcoin is the best performing asset this year to date. Now, year to date is somewhat of an arbitrary timeline. You could pick the last 6 months, 12 months, whatever you want, but year to date, Bitcoin has outperformed gold, stocks, and everything else. And so some of that is probably speculation around the halving. Some of that is the macro backdrop. And then some of that is just naturally more and more people start to want and learn about a fixed asset. And so I think that trend will continue to happen. Obviously, the big thing on the horizon is, in about a week here, we're going to get a 50% reduction in the daily incoming supply. And so if you have a demand shock and a supply shock happening at the same time, I think it's really, really bullish for Bitcoin.
I would have to agree with Pomp that it does not really matter what will happen to Bitcoin in the short term. Expect lots of volatility, but over a long term, Bitcoin's reduction supply with demand shock will boost the price significantly. Considering the fact that we currently have QE infinity, Fed is printing money like there is no tomorrow. Inflation is just a matter of time, and most likely financial assets will be way more inflated than consumption products. Mike Novogratz also recently presented his opinion on this event, and he also gave his Bitcoin price prediction by the end of 2020. Let's take a look.
What's your take on the event? It certainly seemed a little bit like a sell the news kind of event, at least initially.
Yeah, a little bit. I think there was a lot of hype going into the halving, right? We've come off from 4,500, so huge rally, a lot of retail participation. There's a great macro backdrop. We've talked about it ad infinitum of why crypto right now and Bitcoin specifically makes so much sense. And then you had the news that Paul Jones had bought it and then bought it for his fund, which is, I think, really, really significant. And so you had a little bit of a retail frenzy that got sold off. I would expect the market to hold here at 8,000, 8,500 and to start trading right back up. We're seeing at our shop just a huge increase in interest in Bitcoin and getting into crypto from high net worth individuals, from funds. Crypto is not easy to buy. It takes a while to get set to buy it. If it was easy to buy, it would be much higher. And so it doesn't happen overnight, but it feels like a herd is on its way, finally.
So I'm curious, we've seen in the past with these halvings, you see a sell-off 30 to 60 days. Are you positioned that way where we have a sell-off for 30 days and then the real rally comes? Or do you think that's the last two times and we're not going to have it again?
No, I laughed. I had a really original strategy of kind of selling into the halving and then buying the pullback. But we have seen so much activity that I didn't sell a damn thing. I put a HODL sign, hold on for dear life sign, which is a crypto term where, the real core crypto guys never sell. I really think that the movement we're seeing, listen, the halving comes almost at a perfect time. If you think about this macro backdrop of quantitative easing on top of quantitative easing on top of quantitative easing, the halving is quantitative tightening. And so, it's like an exclamation point on the macro story of why a scarce asset like Bitcoin should go higher. And so I haven't sold. I think, I missed the sell-off, and I think you're going to see the thing base here. And we will take out 10,000. We will go to 20,000 by the end of the year. I feel real confident about it.
$20,000 is definitely a very conservative price prediction. Despite the fact that QE infinity is in place, we also have very positive news from JP Morgan. The CEO, Jamie Dimon, who has been bashing Bitcoin for years, calling Bitcoin a fraud and so on, he finally changed his side, and now JP Morgan Bank will be providing services to Coinbase, Gemini as the first cryptocurrency exchange customers. Let me know what do you guys think about the recent Bitcoin price halving and what is your price target by the end of 2020. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, hit that like button and subscribe.